the most tremendous new musical experience you can have.
Alright, what's up y'all, it's Logan, and I'm here bringing y'all this review to this newest Grizzley album called The Smartest. Now this one clocks in at 17 songs and 45 minutes. Just a little background on Grizzley. He is a trap artist. If you've heard him, you know he has this patented catchphrase, you know, they sleeping on my downfall. He talks about that all the time. He doesn't have much range, really. I mean, every single song seems like it's about that, like his come up from them sleeping on him and counting on his downfall. Like, that's it. That's all they really talk about with him. And you know, because of that, I've never really been a fan of Grizzley. I mean, he has some decent tracks. He has some bangers. He has some songs that I've enjoyed, but nothing for me to really go back to, and definitely nothing for me to dive into. Any of his deeper lyrics all have to do with that same thing. You know, I went to jail. They're sleeping on my downfall. Blah, 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 blah. You know, all that same stuff. So I've never really gotten into him. Most of his tracks sound very similar. He has a very generic and boring sound at times. I mean, it can be hype, but, you know, his voice doesn't always sound great over what he's doing. I'll mention that later in my cons, but, again, yeah, just a generic sound about overcoming the odds and crap like that. So I didn't have high hopes going into this one, but I still went in saying, you know, maybe, you know, I've seen crazier things where artists just completely flip the script. So, if I'm going to go with the pros, the beats can be engaging, albeit, yes, generic. They're enough to keep you interested. I mean, they're your generic trap beats. A lot of them are bangers. Sometimes it gets a little bit deeper and darker. So it can be enough to pull you in here and there. Other than that, he does cover a few more interesting topics that actually keep you interested, such as on the song I Apologize, which I talk about later as one of my favorite tracks. Like I said, you know, he does kind of break out of that mold of only talking about his downfall. Now, that being said, he still talks about it quite a bit, but a lot less, and that impressed me. That made for this to be a much easier listen altogether. Now, if I'm going to go into the cons, everything mentioned earlier about how generic he is from his sound, how generic the beats are, all of that stays. He didn't change up his formula entirely, even if I will say this is one of his best efforts. And then his voice is just not engaging. Like I said, I would mention that later. Here it is. His voice not engaging. It sounds off-putting, you know? It's like he doesn't sound like he should be rapping over these beats. It's just a weird voice. He has kind of this slang or accent to him that just puts him off of the beat a little bit sometimes, you know? That being said, it doesn't affect your listening too much. And it's not even that noticeable on most of the tracks, but when it is noticeable, you're like, oh, okay, it kind of makes you cringe a little bit, but it's something that you can get over. It's just there for mentioning, you know? Now, if I'm going to go through the tracks that I enjoyed or the tracks that have features on them, you know, I'm going to break those down as well. I'm going to start with the track that I like the most, which I mentioned earlier, I Apologize. Now, on this one, he's talking about how he can't make songs like everyone else, and how he's sold out in some of his latest work. So he's literally apologizing for doing that and saying, you know what, I want to go out and just do what I want to do. I want to be unique. And make music for myself that you can enjoy rather than making music that everyone else is putting out. He even throws out some artists that he has tried to emulate and says, you know, I can't be the next them or else I'm just going to fail. I'm never going to make it in this. I got to be me. So this song actually has some solid lyricism considering the artist that Grizzley is, and overall has an enjoyable message that, again, it's just not his normal topic, I guess. I mean, it falls in that range, but it was an enjoyable way for him to present the stuff, so I really enjoyed that track. Now after that, we have Trenches featuring Big Sean, and this one has a really dark trap beat that allows both to give some solid bars and verses. I really enjoyed this beat quite a bit. You know, I like some dark trap beats. Now, that being said, their bars really don't amount to much. It's not like they're saying anything crazy. It's not like they're flowing out of their minds. You know, their verses don't really impress me too much. But overall, it's an enjoyable track. They don't do anything that make the song worse, but they also don't do anything to make the song better. just the fact that you have the enjoyable beat. That's really the biggest positive you're going to get out of that one. And after that comes Lions and Eagles, which features Meek Mill, and of course, if you can't tell by the title, that refers to the football mascots from their respective cities. Of course, Meek being from Philly and them being the Eagles, and then T Grizzly being from Detroit and them being the Lions, of course. And on this one, the beat does get a little annoying, just very repetitive at times, which can take you out of it, but if you actually pay attention to their rapping and stuff, you really don't notice it that much because they're rapping very well. Meek has a decent verse to start out, but T Grizzly actually comes out and raps all around Meek. I mean, Meek just didn't bring his normal energy. You know the energy that Meek brings. He's a rap screamer, let's be totally honest. And he came a little sedated on this one, I guess. So that T Grizzly actually comes out full of energy and he kills this song. Just the energy over it really helps bring this song up. This song would have been a lot better had Meek had a really good, classic Meek verse, a la like Dreams and Nightmares or something like that. Just where he came with a lot more energy, He really didn't bring much on this one, but still, solid track altogether. Now next comes COVID with Lil Baby. And this one, T actually comes out a little boring. And of course he's got bars about quarantining and how he's been playing Call of Duty the entire time. I mean, that's pretty much the entire hook. But it doesn't really say much. I mean, that's just generic crap that you feel like a 15-year-old would have put out when talking about quarantine. And, I'm going to name this song COVID. I'm going to talk about I've been playing video games in quarantine, Masks. It's kind of dumb. But then after that, Baby actually comes in and gives a very solid verse. I loved his sound on this one. I loved his flow. A lot of people have been talking about how he's been the MVP of 2020. And I gotta say, going into 2020, he was one of my least favorite rappers. I usually referred to him as my least favorite, not because he was the worst, but just because everyone loved him. And I never enjoyed anything that he put out outside of a couple of songs that he had with Gunna on their collab project. I can't, the name's slipping me right now. But yes, 2020 he has brought us quite a few good feature verses, and then even his album My Turn was okay. I gave it a 4 out of 10. I'm not a huge fan of it. I still think it was overall bad, but it had its fair share of positives, so I'm very impressed by Lil Baby and his growth. I hope that he can continue this trend, maybe do different things, But yeah, overall a decent track. Not great, but not an overall like, oh, you shouldn't listen to this. Like Lil Baby's verse was pretty solid. After that comes Slime with Lil Keed. On this one, he had a decent verse. Again, nothing really making me enjoy it, but nothing making me hate it either. And that's kind of where he finds his zone on this album, where I feel a lot of that on this project. However, when you get to Keed, he was garbage straight up. Just awful. He tried his best to sound like Young Thug, and where he got that strained, high-pitched voice. But he sounded like Thug in the sense that if you took away everything that makes him great. He just tried to emulate Thug here, but he did not pull it off. Honestly, if you replace Lil Keed with Young Thug on here, you even give him the same bars. Of course, I'm sure Young Thug could write something better. I had a hard time paying attention to the bars with how horrible Keed's voice was, but just put Thug on this track, and it's probably a really great track compared to the trash that it turned out to be. So overall, I enjoyed this a lot more than I thought I was going to. I thought I was going to stink this one up, but no, this one was actually very positive. Was it good? I can't go so far as to say that, like that's iffy, but was it bad? No, not at all. It had some good tracks. It had a couple bad ones, like I said, with Slime, but I mean, it was full of a bunch of filler. They were, a lot of the filler was decent tracks to where you can say, hey, they might have been skips, they might have not. Overall, I've heard a lot worse, and I definitely vibed with this, and I enjoyed a lot of the tracks. Again, it being 17 songs, I just feel like had he cut it down to like 12, maybe 10, this would have been a really positive experience. Just cut out a couple of those tracks. Like, definitely cut out Slime. Probably cut out COVID. Have that Lil Baby verse on a different track, maybe. Again, I don't know that it would fit on different tracks, but or at least tool up your verse on that, T. Trenches, write better over that beat. You know, stuff like that. But yeah, a little bit of filler, but overall a very solid project that I enjoyed. If I'm gonna give it a rating, I am going to go with a better if it was shorter, 5.5 out of 10. Yeah, I just feel like there's a couple of tracks you could have cut. Definitely cut Rap a Lot, cut The Funeral, cut Slime, maybe like two or three more tracks, just up to your choice that were tacked on closer to the middle slash end of this project. You know, it started off pretty strong and then kind of wavered a little bit. If you cut this down a couple of tracks to where it was like 12-ish songs long, this probably could have jumped up to like somewhere in that 6 or 7 range. To where it could have been a solid project. Overall, though, still really enjoyed and surprised me. And I say check out the songs that I mentioned that were good. Specifically, Lions and Eagles. Check out Baby's verse on COVID, and check out I Apologize. You know, those are the songs that I really am taking away from this one. That being said, I appreciate y'all watching this video. Make sure to hit the like button, comment, and sub. Hit the bell next to my name for notifications. Share this video so your friends can check it out. I appreciate y'all so much, and I will hit y'all up next time.